Ritesh, I'm looking forward to the next talk also. That sounds like a very good one.
Yeah.
I'll have
Just
to
a
leave
sec.
early to have a talk at 6 with the
Oh, you also?
Madras
You also?
bloggers or something.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
I wish this was a monetizable model. I wouldn't have had to work for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you've probably done the most of the talks from us, no?
No one dares do a webinar without me.
Sorry?
No one dares to do a webinar without me.
Oh, okay, okay.
So hi guys, good afternoon to another episode of welcome to another episode of Xtra Bytes and from Exploring Light. And I am Jassi Oberai. Today we have one wonderful speaker, RITESH Uttamchandani, and I will not speak about him. There are two. One are distinguished moderator, Mr. Dinesh Khanna. He will take you through his entire journey, and the interview will take place between him and the speaker. And before I hand it over to Dinesh sir, let me introduce everyone to our elite panel. Before I hand it over to Srijan, sorry. So
I know. I was about to leave just now.
there are too many guys.
I was with the relief.
So, Srijan was thinking that what should I do? All right.
I was relieved.
So Sriranj is the panelist as well, and along with that, the moderator. Then we have Suresh, then we have Dinesh Khanna sir, and then we have Jayati, and we have Indrajit. And welcome everybody to this wonderful session. And thank you, Ritesh, for accepting the invite to join us. It's quite a privilege.
Could I get one more minute, please? Could I get one more minute?
Yeah,
I mean, you can continue, but could I get just one more minute?
So, without much ado, I think I will hand it over to Sriranj, who will take it forward from here. So, over to you, Sriranj.
Yeah, thank you, Jassi. Thank you, distinguished panelists. Thank you, Dinesh ji, once again for joining us. And Ritesh, thank you very much for accepting our invite. Great to have you here. I personally came to know about Ritesh 3 years ago by reading a blog about him by Divya Koshi George. It was very striking, and I wanted to know more about this person. One thing common about me and Dinesh is that we both worked in Dubai, and we left a job and we pursued photography. So I wanted to know more about Ritesh. We happened to get contact from Facebook. We do once in a while communications. Then 2 years ago, he released his book, The Red Cat and Other Stories. And I happened to purchase the book. Ritesh, proof. It's a wonderful book, a must-have for everybody. His vision on the streets, the way he's captured it, from a pure street perspective, it goes to the stories of the people, especially the Xtra and the guy who enacted as Anil Kapoor. It was a fabulous book. It really inspired me a lot. And then when we started these sessions with Jassi, teamed up with Jassi, the name that came to my mind is inviting Ritesh and to know more about his thought process in making this book and his journey, and to understand more from him. So Ritesh, if you're available, we can start. I will leave the stage to you. Ritesh,
Sorry.
I'm done with my talking.
Sorry. I had to look at the door. We've got a lot of things happening actually. My house is also being used as, we're doing a little bit of relief work and things like that. So we have people coming in and out all the time. So sorry, I'll be a little distracted.
Okay, the stage is yours now. Over to you.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? So 1 second. Let me just figure out my...
Ritesh, your button dabao yaar. You had mentioned in your blog, no?
Which one?
वो सिर्फ तो बटन दबाते हैं.
Yeah, I'm here. So, just a second. Hi. So, thank you all for having me here. And I'm sorry, things are a bit disorganized here. Actually, since most of the people here probably don't know what I used to do and how the book happened, etc. So I'm going to start with a small little section which I think some of you have been exposed to. Is I'm going to talk about my journey, and I'm a photographer from Bombay, and how I came to be a photographer, and how all of those little choices that I did influenced how I went about making a book. And uh, so, should I show you all some images and keep talking, or should I, kind of?
Yeah, please.
So I'll have to share screen.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Whichever you're comfortable with.
I'm going to show you this one. All right. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start with something, like one of the earliest photographs that I saw of my own self, which is taken by my sister. And that's me trying to steal, her film. तो हमारे घर के जो फोटोग्राफर थे वो हमारी सिस्टर थी.
Sorry,
और हम
Ritesh, can you enlarge the screen
enlarge the screen?
on top? Yes.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Perfect.
Okay. I need to pause the slideshow for a minute first. Okay. So हमारे घर में, I mean, my sister used to be our photographer, and we had a very interesting way of, like for us, very, very small things like going to the beach, going to the park, going to the zoo was a big occasion. तो हम ऐसा ना film बचा के रखते थे, and it used to be stored in the fridge, and sometimes I would go and fool around. And my sister also had this very strange habit of taking very funny pictures of us, like कभी कभी कलिंगड़ रख देगी हमारे सर पे, कभी पेड़ से उल्टा लटका देगी. I was like her guinea pig, and I think most of us have been through this at some point in time. So I can show you like the woman in blue. That's my sister who used to take. Her name is Sonia. That's my dad. My eldest sister Shirley, and that's what I used to look like when I had hair. And that's my mom. So we're a very small, middle class family. Nothing to do with photography. Nothing to do with the arts. And the sole purpose was कि हाँ, आगे जाके you should become an accountant, become a manager, become something of that sort. तो अभी वो गोल को फुलफिलमेंट के लिए हमको भेज दिए कॉमर्स पढ़ने के लिए, जहाँ पे हम जाके सब गड़बड़ कर दिए. And eventually, I was in bad company. I was not doing, I was not hanging with the right people, and I was sent to Dubai to work. And this is what I used to look like when I used to work in Dubai. I'm showing you these old photos because a number of times, we are not able to really identify our roots. कभी कभी लगता है कि हम इससे इंस्पायर हो गए, उससे इंस्पायर हो गए. एक्चुअली वो ऑलरेडी है, वो बना हुआ है, इनबिल्ट है. तो दुबई में मेरी बहुत अजीब सी नौकरी थी एक, जहाँ पे मुझे so there was this man who used to basically go to hotels which were not running a full occupancy, and he would tell them, why don't you lease out 2 of your floors to me at half the rate, and it's my job to give you full occupancy. And later we came to know that he was running a very elaborate prostitution and drugs racket, which we were also strangely part of. But what happened is, I learned one very important skill while I was while I was in this job, is that we used to go out on the street and simply ask very random people if they wanted to in Hindi, if I say, it will sound much more tackier. हम सीधा जाके पूछते थे कि आपको रूम चाहिए क्या? एंड अगर आपको कोई स्ट्रेंजर इस टाइप का दिखने वाला लड़का या आके ऐसे ऐसे सवाल इंडिया में भी पूछ ले तो भी ऑड लगेगा, और ये हम दुबई में करते थे। तो खैर ठीक है, वो सब सही था, लेकिन उसके बाद में मेरी एक नौकरी लगी थी एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी में, जहाँ पे हम कॉफ़ी बनाना, क्लाइंट सर्विसिंग, ग्राफिक्स ओवरसी करना, सब कुछ करते थे। इट वाज़ वेरी स्मॉल हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ का सेटअप, 5 एम्प्लॉइज़। तो हम ऐसे ही भटकते रहते थे, एक नौकरी से दूसरी नौकरी, दूसरे काम से दूसरे काम, बिकॉज़ फैमिली सपोर्ट करनी है, घर चलना है वगैरह, बहुत सारे रीज़न्स हैं। उस बीच में जब हम लंच पे आए एक दिन, एंड आई सॉ अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री ऑन अ फोटोग्राफर कॉल्ड डेविड एलन हार्वी, and I was like, wow, man, what a cool job, this is really what I want to do. So I left everything. I came back to India, and much like with a lot of resistance from my family, and I met this man. It's his birthday today. I'm not sure if he's there watching. His name is A. Srinivas. He was at Priyadarshini Park in Bombay. He was taking pictures of something, and I was very curious, and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. Let me ask him, what he does. And he turned out to be from the Indian Express, and he was very reluctant to kind of uh, have me, he was very reluctant to help me also. तो उनका एक अजीब सा तरीका था टेस्ट करने का। वो हमको सुबह को बुलाएंगे डोंबिवली में, which is very very far from where I live. It's a central suburb. It's not even a suburb of Bombay. It's a little on the outskirts. Um, he would call me at 7 o'clock, and he would show up at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And there were times when I was like, should I go to pee? Should I not go to pee? Should I go to eat? Should I not go to eat? Is he going to turn up now? What's going to happen? The core idea of what he was doing was revealed to me much later, is that he was testing whether you are patient enough, because a lot of photography involves a lot of patience. You have to wait for things to happen, people to arrive, light to change, and when things happen, they just happen like that. So one of the key learnings was this from him. Apart from the fact that he exposed me to a lot of books, he made me read a very interesting book called Pictures on a Page by Harold Evans. And after that, I went to my college library, and I realized that they also had some very interesting books, especially something called Inside Photojournalism by Howard Chapnick, and one of the very early editions of Raghu Rai's, I think it was called A Life in the Day of Indira. And uh, I saw the library register, and they were last checked out, like, I think by somebody in the 80s, or late 80s. So in my college also, we didn't really have you know um, photography was like an elective, and so anyways, I hung out with him, and I used to work for different kinds of publications at the same time. I had 3 jobs. So I used to intern with the Indian Express for 3 days. I used to freelance for the Times of India for 3 days, and whatever little time I would get, I would work for a very small listings magazine called Salam Bombay, which is no longer in existence. And eventually, uh, I was like, I don't want to do any of this. I want to focus on one job. So I ensured that the Indian Express anyhow hired me. I mean, after my 3 months unpaid, miserable, painful internship, uh, I stuck on for 3 more months till the time they didn't take me on staff. And yeah, and just the time when they took me on staff and they were considering, that I should be promoted or taken, I jumped over, I abandoned ship, and I went to Hindustan Times, where I met this man, and his name is Soumitra Ghosh. And Soumitra Ghosh passed away recently, but he was one of the most, amazing photo editors I have worked with, because not only did he teach me, like, certain very essential bits of composition, but he also taught me one of the most important things is that as a news photographer, a number of times you shouldn't wait for an assignment to happen. You can take your own initiative and you can go out and do your own things. And basically he explored the potential that I didn't know I had in me, which is of writing along with photographs. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the time I was there in the newspapers. And I didn't choose this font. Yeah. Oh my God, we're back. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being patient.
Let us.
Jassi, can you enlarge the screen?
Yeah.
So this is one example of how Mr. Ghosh used to kind of tell us how to have like a reasonably tangential approach to storytelling, especially for newspapers. So this photograph was taken outside my house, like outside my building. This is one of the domestic help who used to come in our society. And I mean, it was taken on the 26th of July, when Bombay was, flooded beyond belief. And we had a lot of images coming in of submerged cars, submerged streets, etc. But Mr. Ghosh decided that he should run with this photograph because it shows the kind of hammering that people have gone through, especially over the last 3 days of consistent rain. And I mean, the fact that somebody saw my entire folder and shortlisted this particular image also informed the way I started photographing any news event after that. And if we go to the next image, which is an extremely stupid, risky maneuver I had done when I sat on top of a train, because I was like, if I need to get a viewer closer to what train travel, what, like Bombay, we've seen, हमने बहुत सारी तस्वीरें देखी हैं बॉम्बे की जिसमें लोग ट्रेन के ऊपर बैठे हुए हैं, but वो feeling क्या है, वो how close can I get to it? Of course, I will never repeat this ever again because it took me about 4 days of going to the station and coming back. मैं decide करते रहता था आज मैं चढ़ूंगा और मेरे से होता नहीं था, मेरी फट जाती थी. और फिर फाइनली चौथे दिन पे जब मैंने डिसाइड किया तो there were these four laborers who were sitting facing in front of me. I gave them my camera bag, I gave them my tiffin, and I said, "Ki boss, I can't see behind what's coming. I can't see any bridge, any ropes, anything. So I'm dependent on you for my life right now. But I'm going to photograph you." So, like, there's like this little system of trust which was established within seconds, and I explored it. And these. So, could we go to the next one? And again, I mean, I don't know if this one was this photograph was taken in Sion Hospital. Her name is Daksha Modi. She's one of the survivors of the serial bombings. And a news photographer होना मतलब आप सुबह को कोई कोई प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस शूट करोगे, कोई दोपहर को कोई स्पोर्ट्स होगा, शाम को कुछ फैशन शो होगा, कुछ भी दिन में आप 4-5 ऐसी अलग अलग असाइनमेंट्स करते रहते हैं. So, I mean, I also feel like I can qualify as a generalist. Instead of a photojournalist, you can just call me a generalist who is put into different situations, and who's like, we are responsible to bring out not just the essence, but something else that gives gives a much more comprehensive reading of the situation to a viewer. So there were a lot of these gory images of train compartments, bodies being hauled, and things like that. But this one particular photograph, again, it traveled a lot. It went, onto the Guardian, etc., because it kind of spoke of the universal sentiment of relief. Ki, हम बच गए types, for some people, for the ones who survived. Next, could we go to the next? And this too is this is from the funeral of Sanford de Sales. He was our national level hockey player, and so the thing is that, as I said, that Mr. Ghosh used to tell us to take our own initiative, which meant that I would keep an eye out for things that are happening, and this is entirely my story. There's no reporter involved in it or something. I found out about this funeral, I found out about his story, and I managed to convince the family that this needs to be told. This needs to be. The story was such that Sanford came to India after 10 or 12 years, and his goal was to take his parents, you can see them sitting in the corner, back home with him to Canada. And this was the first time he took a train in more than a decade. And the outcome was, you can see the outcome of that. And so it's a particularly difficult time for a family, and the fact that they allowed me to record it so that people can see what the impact is on families. We generally look at news photographs from a very different, distant perspective, like, okay, ye kisi ke saath hua, ye kya. But when you go into the inside of a house, and I mean, I think I must have shot just about 12 frames this entire particular day, and most of my time was gone in just sitting, waiting, just sitting, waiting, um, to see whether they are trusting me enough, they have enough faith in me being present at such a and narrating this, um, how can I put it, I mean, in showing their grief and the way they're coping with it to the rest of the, to the rest of our readers. We go to the next. So I used to come up with these, more such stories, and this is a story of a survivor. And this is probably the first time I realized that um, when you take when you take a photograph, when you publish it, there are good things that happen to people. And after the publication of this photograph, I've forgotten her first name, sadly, which is very wrong on my part. Um, um, uh, she got a job. She was moved to a different, a reasonably better home. Um, and I don't know. I just felt that this, I realized that there is a larger goal to news photography than just drawing a salary, than just um, just going through the motions of different assignments a day. So I started looking and doing work that I felt would be able to, which would kind of, I don't know, I can't, I can't change the world with a single image, but if I can provide kisi ka, if I can provide some positive benefits through my images, I started looking for those things after this. Could we go to the next one? And here's the story I worked on malnutrition in a place called Jawahar, which is just about, I think, 100 kilometers away from Bombay. We've normally seen pictures of malnourished children with protruding bellies, and I felt that it somehow strips their dignity a little. And instead, there was this very quiet moment between father and daughter, where the child is looking at solid food for the first time after, being discharged from a hospital. Could we go to the next? Once again, falling, so as I showed you all the photographs of my own, I showed you some pictures of my own growing up. I take a lot of referencing from my own life. Like I remember that when I would come from, मैं जब बाहर से आता था तो मेरी मम्मी अपने पल्लू से हमारा मुंह पोंछती थी, और शायद हम सब ये एक्सपीरियंस कर चुके हैं. This was a story I worked on with a reporter on HIV positive survivors and families. And I don't know, I just felt that this kind of encapsulates their bond a lot better than, a very sad, well-lit portrait. Could we go to the next? Again, one more photograph that is born out of a very mundane exercise. I was asked to photograph, I was assigned to photograph a street painting competition for slum children. And the reason why they were doing it was this was their form of revolt. This was their form of, um, you know, kind of telling the government to not demolish their houses. So, I mean, it's a very simple portrait. Again, a great photo editor comes in and takes this very simple portrait and puts it on the front page, and it has a very different impact than The slum demolition was stopped for a while, and they were given permanent houses, about 150 odd families. Could we go to the next one?
Ritesh, sorry, can you catch your mic because you're getting some disturbance?
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Oh, it's just that I have that wavy hand syndrome, so it Uh, it- so a lot of the photographs that you take and that I took as a newspaper photographer were often unpublished, and this was one such image which gave me sleepless nights, and it made me very angry that it didn't get published. What's happening in the scene is this is a very small chai stall, and I have this very big cinema lens. Um, I stopped here to have a cigarette, and I used to smoke back then. Um, and I noticed there's like this boy sitting below the table eating his lunch. And I asked the these two are stall owners. This is in Surendranagar. And they said that no, that is his designated place, you know. And it slowly hits you that this is the kind of designated place for a person from a lower caste. And um, yeah, I mean, I wish this photograph would have been published in 2007. I mean, this was made while I was covering the elections, the Gujarat chief ministerial elections. I think it would have a reasonable impact on the outcome. Um, could we go to the next image? So I would go from one single image to another single images. That is how my trajectory as a newspaper photographer was. And since I love sports, yeah, I also did a visual essay on the Maharashtra Paralympic trials, and yeah. If you all have any questions, if you all have any comments about the images or something, please feel free to fire them. This was also in Gujarat while the elections, and I feel that I also tend to gravitate towards certain funny, humorous situations because also humor is a very underrated genre in photography, so to say. And I stayed with this CRPF camp purely because they had alcohol with them, and I didn't have to, run around for it in Gujarat. And we would have vodka in katoris, and thing ऐसे चलते रहता था. But they had also adopted a very cute dog, and they would play, after their evening rounds, they would come back and play with the dog, and it was a very beautiful sight. Could we go to the next?
Ritesh, this was shot when you were with Hindustan Times?
Yes, these are all Hindustan Time between 2005 and 2007.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, boss.
You did mention that till now you were looking at still single images.
Mhm.
Do you elaborate on that? Is it because you were working as a photojournalist and it was about information stroke interpretation of that scene, which was important,
Yeah.
and you weren't really stringing things together into stories yet?
No, I wasn't doing that,
Did
and
the
it was
job demand it of you, or you felt that you hadn't moved on? That was where you were.
I think it's both ways. The job demanded that I, be like this producer of content which, fills certain holes on the pages. And second thing was I was also not very mature at that point in time to start thinking in terms of a progression of images as to what comes first, what comes third, what comes seventh, and things like that. I think it's a natural progression. I was just 2 years old. So yeah, and it took time, as in it took time, it took exposure, and um, at that point in time, what I used to do in 2007, I came across this very interesting Yahoo group called A Photo a Day.
Mhm.
It's called APAD, and APAD was this bunch of largely American photographers who would on this Yahoo group, they would, you know put out their outtakes. They would put like, whatever was rejected, whatever was unpublished, whatever they shot for themselves, or pictures of their own child, or cats and things like that. This is like, um, I think, a baby version of Instagram, if I could call it now. And this group was so cool. I mean, they were like, they would talk about these images, they would make jokes at each other. And um, then I started looking at their work, and I realized that, oh, these guys are actually doing like long form visual stories. Somebody's doing a book, somebody's doing something. And I think my education into stringing multiple images in a narrative form began over
Understood.
there.
But can I just hark back to a comment you just made about photographs which filled holes in newspapers?
Yeah,
Uh, I find that self-depreciating at one end,
it's I know.
uh, and but okay. As a more serious note, do you really think that newspapers looked at photographs like this as hole fillers? One. Two, what did you think was the audience's response to such what you call hole fillers? Because and maybe because of being a photographer, I look forward to such photographs in any newspaper or magazine. But then, yes,
Mm,
I am not the normal or average audience. But
mm.
what is your take on that?
So I said it purely out of like, purely out of self-depreciation, and there were days when we would fall short of content, so we would fall back on images of any kinds. Like, it's about 11:30, 12, paper is about to go to bed, so we need something. So a number of times we would just run whatever was there in the file, whatever chalta hai, second best types. So those were the whole fillers, to be very honest. But otherwise, the average standalone or the offbeat or the kind of image that you spoke about, which which you would look forward to, that is like our, like photographers would still long for that kind of space. Like if I was told to like abandon all assignments and simply wander and produce 4 images of the city for the newspaper, I will take that job within a, like I won't think. So those
And
were
would that
images
be a
that we would
problem
long
with the
to do.
photo editor of a particular publication, or do you think newspapers
it's a
generally
collective it's a
give more
collective
importance to
mindset.
words than the pictures?
No, it's a collective mindset. A number of times, a lot of stories also that shouldn't be there end up being there because, they try to get a visual is not available. Okay, we'll just go to the agencies and pick up some random story and just put it there because we don't have anything to fall back on right now. So it's a collective thing, it happens. And again, um, it's it, it, it's collective. It's not just, you can't say photo editors weak or photography is weak, or the desk is poorly educated in terms of images. It's a lot of factors at play, especially when you're working with like a team of say about 150 people. So it won't be fair to kind of pin the blame on one person. Yes, somebody can step in and kind of elevate the situation to a better place, but that is a situation to situation call.
Like if I may ask just one more question, may I?
Ji.
Jesse, is it okay? And it's ironical that we stopped at this particular photograph, which
Hmm.
I think makes very strong both political and cultural
Hmm.
kind of a comment here.
Hmm.
One, I would assume this was used, right?
Yeah, this was used.
By a newspaper, okay. Uh, and did it draw flack from the Shiv Sena? Because there are two, three things which came to my mind. There's a bed. There's a girl in a mini skirt. There's
Hmm.
Baba Sahib.
Hmm.
And it's red.
It's orange.
Okay, so
Hmm.
even if it's orange, man, it's like for me this looks like it's a bomb waiting to explode. The
No.
Russian clerics would have come out on the streets and said, "आपने ये कैसे तौहीन कर दी?" Am I reading too much into this myself?
Actually, I think I don't think the Shiv Sena really gave a shit for this. And I'm not even sure that some of their readers would have even paid attention or seen it, because the Indian Express is not necessarily the Shiv Sena's preferred choice of newspaper.
No, I guess not.
But the thing is that this was a very interesting event, so to say. So, as I said, I narrated my day would be like, I would start with, some assignment in the morning, something in the afternoon, something in the evening. Because I was the junior most, because I was reasonably, like my, like, yeah, I mean, I came from a different upbringing altogether. So, my my bosses were also very cool. Like, they would insist that I go shoot some parties as well, those page 3 parties. And I started going, and they're like very boring, and there's a lot of drudgery involved in this kind of work. And um, but then a couple of these veterans who do that, who've been doing it for years, and they're like, no, like Mr. Bachchan and all these people know them on a first name basis. um, they had this very strict code of conduct that we'll not photograph after these guys have started enjoying themselves. And I was like, what? This is the best part, when they get drunk, when they're out of their, when they're reasonably out of control, is actually when they're themselves, when
When they
when
get
they're
real.
when they're like you and me, forget themselves. So I would wait for people to get drunk. I would wait for people to do that. Of course, I didn't last in the Express for long enough. Otherwise, I would have continued this tradition. But this is a product of that. This is around 2 to 30. There was this guy who owns Rupam, the sari thingy,
Mhm.
and he threw this political themed party. Every room was, one room was Congress theme, one room was Shiv Sena, one room was BJP, one room was something. And it's an absolute non-news event. It's just like, it's just a socialite gathering. But uh, I mean, I ended up with this, and this is like something I can keep for lifetime for myself. It
Did
transcends.
it did it get published?
Yeah, it got published
Good.
in the. So there are two, three versions of this. There's a horizontal. There's a, there's something I shot from the side, etc. So one particular equally distressing for the Shiv Sena version got published as a page one, as a supporting image for a page one anchor story. So I mean, the photograph was not really the focus in that story. It was just the image. It was just the words. So that also happens a number of times. You take something which has which means something, but some editor is going to bring both of them together.
Thank you,
No, to me,
Ritesh.
this looks so loaded with the bed, the girl wearing a miniskirt, she's Christian, there's Bala Sahib, there's Jai
Hmm.
Maharashtra. I mean, this is like a minefield. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one where she's got a
I
And
think
suit.
Ritesh has got
you
more
love
to
that
more to
character,
say
isn't
and
it?
more to show.
Huh?
Hmm.
Ritesh has
Yeah.
got more to show, I guess.
It's
So
amazing.
let's
Wonderful.
Okay.
so let's
Could
move on.
Yeah, let's go to the
Yeah,
next one.
carry on,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So that's his son. That's Bala Sahib's son, and he's our current chief minister. And this was again at one of those boring business conferences. And now it makes so much sense. The Shiv Sena's alliance with two other parties coming together to form government. I mean, it's a 6 year. It's, I think, probably shot in 2006 or something. But a number of times, as a newspaper person or as a magazine person, you make photographs of politicians. And I don't know if you all have had Praveen Jain have I don't know if you know Praveen Jain,
Yeah,
but
fantastic.
Praveen Jain is like the is like the master of these very quirky political images that he used
He's
to
a
take.
master of irony in politics.
Yeah, and apart from the being the master of irony, he's also had some incredible evidential photographs to his credit. So yeah, we would do these kind of images as well. And could we go to the next? So this is just another, like this political theater. Chiranjeev is joining a party, and there's like Ramzan. I mean, we're in the month now, and so this is in the evening when they were opening their fast, and this child is being shoved a date in his mouth forcibly, because the media is here, they have to take photographs, etc. So there's another thing that we used to do is, you can see in the next image, when I flip sides, when I leave the media contingent and go to the other side. So an immediate payback of sorts, which you won't get it from that side. So a number of times, what matters is your footwork as to where you stand and how you react. And yeah, so these were just tricks of the trade that we kept learning. How to make pictures fast, how to gain somebody's trust, what to wear, how to conduct yourself. These are all things that I learned on the job. And so yeah,
I have a question
could be
here. Now
G.
you have been shooting. We saw the previous one also. This big discussion we Dinesh,
Hmm.
yeah, and these ones also. And so being in this job, you get to click, and you said that you used to click moments which others would have a protocol not to do that.
Hmm.
So were you still acceptable in those parties or in these kinds of events by the politicians or the celebrities?
So I'm not a regular figure at such places, and I keep a very, 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 very low profile. So I'm mostly not seen. I work like a mouse, if I may say so. I'm not really seen. I'm not really known. Long back, somebody had told me ki, uh, friendships with policemen, priests, and politicians must be done with adequate amount of care. So I'm not friends with anybody. I'm not enemies with anybody. If I'm assigned for something, I go there. If they don't want me there, they're more than happy to get me kicked out. I'm more than happy to utilize that time and go and make some other images, which will, you know, uh, be better than this.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Should we go? As another example of the same, like here is where I was not wanted. Here is where I was told to not be in the press pit, um, because I didn't have the right kind of documents with me. I didn't have the accreditation. But Mr. Modi was campaigning for 2007, the same election of, you know, that little boy's photograph, which was not published. Um, Here is something very simple that Indians do. We give like 100 ruपया, 500 ruपया. We give this even number thing to someone for good luck. So somebody was giving him a 1 rupee coin. I mean, uh, so quick matter of shift of focus. Instead of him, I just shifted my focus to that. That's it. And it's like, there must have been about 1,000 people surrounding me from different places. They all want to meet him. So to maintain composure, maintain footwork, maintain aperture, maintain shutter, maintain all sorts of things, maintain your wallet so that you're not nicked. uh, it's a lot of things that have to be taken care of, and it helps that I'm very small in size, I'm very thin, so I can like get in and out of these places very fast. Could we go to the next? Yeah, and I know a lot of people like taking a lot of people here on this panel also take a lot of portraits. So this is a portrait of Hafiz Contractor. Now I'm not very fond of his architecture or what he's done to the city, his or the way his vision, like he may have come with a different vision, but the contractor or the builder that he works for must have had a different vision. And this was a very, very scathing story that somebody was doing on Hafiz and his um contribution, so to say, to the Bombay skyline. So I got hold of this giant 14-foot by 6-foot glass. Four people were helping me out with it, and we went to the highest building in Bombay. Unfortunately, I had like the worst of the light because my permission was for 12 o'clock. How do you explain to someone that 12 o'clock is not the right, you know, time for it? But anyways, I took it, and then um, this was all like I didn't like I knew what I wanted of him. I had no idea whether he'll do it or not. So one day before, I told him that this is my idea, this is what I want to do, and I want you to sketch on this glass the skyline that you think is the best in the world, and the skyline that you think Bombay should aspire to. I didn't ask him what that city is, but he's drawn Dubai, if you can identify it. And yeah, so just that, like a large time, a number of times as a newspaper photographer, magazine photographer. I was working solo. I would have no assistants, nothing. This is entirely thought, planned, whatever. To the best of my abilities, it's done. And next, what he did with the glass is then he framed it and kept it for himself with that skyline drawn. Strange guy. That's Rubina. She was a girl in Slumdog Millionaire. And again, a portrait that kind of looks at how a certain kind of adulthood is expected out of this child once the film is out and she's doing press conferences and stuff. And just in the middle of those press conferences, she goes back into her hut on this little, steel cupboard and, replenishes her lipstick, and she comes back to give another media bite. So just the transition from child to actor to, a professional, and then back to actor. Next. I'm sure most of you can figure out this place. It's in Banaras, and yeah, very simple story, very simple, straightforward. Um, um, that's B. Lal Sani, I think. I'm sorry if I'm making a mistake on his name. Uh, he was the first person in Banaras to offer photography services for the dead. So these were like the last photographs that, if you're if you're passing towards Manikarnika Ghat, uh, you'll pass by Albert Photo Studio, and this man will, kind of photo kichalo, akhri photo kichalo. This is what he would, peddle. And just I think it's a matter of coincidence, luck, or whatever. You see two different kinds of sleep in this photograph. One is a person on top, and yeah. If there are any questions, please. Um,
I think anybody.
Any questions, panelists?
okay, let's go
Let's
ahead.
move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Sorry, we've lost time anyways. So 2611, I mean, I was also one of the first, one of the few first photographers to respond to it. And I'm just going to show you some images from that. So I almost got shot twice. This is at Metro Signal when Kasab and his colleague had hijacked the Bombay police vehicle, and they was randomly firing from it. So while I was, trying to take cover, I just turned around and took a quick shot of other photographers and other, bystanders trying to take cover. When I turned back, the person on my right, the person on my right and three people to my left, there was a policeman who was shot fatally. You can see that in the next image. Yeah. So this was what, while the bullets were being fired. Let's keep going to the next ones. So we stopped a car. We stopped a passing Scorpio, and made him take the policeman, but sadly he didn't make it. This situation I was completely unprepared for. I had not just this situation per se. This entire 52 hours, I had no idea how to tackle this because I have no hostile environment training, nothing. I just had one camera and a flash, and that's about it. Whereas the next morning when I saw the international press come in, I saw that they were all loaded with jackets and helmets and sat phones. We go to the next one. And that's a guest at the Taj trying to signal with their cell phone. Next. I mean, most of the images are self, I mean, you can gauge what's happening. Here's a policeman who was shot in the back of his head, and he was delirious and he was trying to come in our direction. and I don't know what he was muttering, but I was like, the four people around him were trying to take his gun away from his hand, because what if, he accidentally fires in our direction. People have seen, this was one of, these were the images that kind of became synonymous with the incident. And that's the funeral of Thomas Verghese. He was the manager of Wasabi, the restaurant at Taj, and I think he managed to evacuate about 80 to 100 people before succumbing to one of the bullets himself. That's his mom and his wife, Sunu. And immediately a month later, I went into the exact. Uh, I, I read in a small Hindi newspaper about this one very small time producer trying to make a film on 26/11. So just some images from there.
So these are,
And the guy, sorry,
these are from the film
these
that.
are from the film, yeah.
All right.
Where were they shot?
Sorry.
Where were they shot?
Where were they shot? They were shot in and around Bombay. I mean, wherever they would shoot, this is Film City. And if you notice, they are falling one gun shot for the guy on the right. So he's just standing with his fists. You can keep going. So this is the scene where they were filming the hijack of MV Kuber, the vessel that they hijacked in Gujarat. And on this set, everyone had like multiple roles to play. If you have enough time, you can get a hold of this film. It's terrible, but you'll also see my silhouette in it as one of the photographers who was there. So the policeman was the light man, and yeah, there was this entire narrative built by Ujjwal Nikam on how Kasab was being fed biryani from public money, right? That was what really made the case going. So yeah, and this was the production office of
Was this
another.
part of an assignment, or what was the reason behind shooting this movie, documenting this?
I mean, I just found it like I was thinking long term that at some point in time I'd like to bring these two realities together.
Okay.
And since I was with a magazine, I used to have time, so I thought I can take the risk of visiting the set once a week or something of that sort. So I did that, and of course it got published. It got published in different places apart from my magazine also. But yeah, I mean, if I just bring these two together in some form, then it tells of a very interesting story.
Okay.
And this was another, so 26/11 made me think of how to think long term and see like, okay, where, firstly, apart from taking care of your own self, I also started thinking as to how I can look for parallel narratives at the same time. The Sarah Chalk was a story I did with a reporter on a brothel that is considered one of the more progressive brothels, where women are educated. They're actively, the madam actively insists that they get some vocational training and eventually get out of the trade. And when I went there, I realized that it does not really look like a red light area. So I didn't photograph it like a red light area. I just photographed it like it's an ordinary settlement. And that is something missing from the way we cover or the way we report stories on commercial sex workers. You can just see they're very ordinary, mundane images, but there are hints of the trade.
Because it's kind of some school being run there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is this about that Bengali girl? Is this that?
This is not the Bengali girl. It would be wrong for me to identify the Bengali girl for you, but yeah, she was in this place. And you can see a negotiation happening.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, like, the conversation between a sex worker and a client does not really happen in as dramatic a way as is denoted in our films. They happen very quietly, on the side.
How much time did it take to get their conference here?
I was there for this story for 5 days, but for 3 days, the contact who was supposed to take me there had vanished. So I was doing nothing. I was wasting time. And then finally, another local contact took me there, and he said, I know this, I know the madam, so I'll introduce you. And I think I spoke very openly and I spoke very honestly that, listen, my go, like one person at the brothel asked me, like, do you want any photos of these women, while they're with a client and things like that. And I was like, we're doing a story on how progressive the brothel is. What is two people having sex got to do with it? Uh, it's too literal a photograph for this. So he's like, no, but so many journalists come here, they all want, those action photographs. So, I mean, I think if I was very honest about these things, that I wanted this, that I didn't want this, that my trust was established within 24 hours with him.
Hmm.
And it's usually in the eye contact and the way you conduct yourself. Sometimes it can take 6 months, sometimes it may happen in a second. So they also had a rule that if somebody's drunk and if somebody is refusing to wear a condom, then they would not entertain such a client. So you can see.
Was this published?
Yeah, this was published. We can move over to the next. That's the madam. She sadly passed away 2 years ago. She adopted a sex worker's child. That's the boy. He's healthy and all now. So from while I was doing that story, I also thought again, like as I said, I was thinking of parallel narratives. Um, just before this, um, before the story, I think in 2010, I had this terrible bike accident, due to which I would, I was immobile for about 11 months, and I would just look at my, like my friends would come, I can't call it a lockdown, but my friends would come, they'd bring beer and popcorn and this and that. But my consistent view was my ceiling. And there's a certain captivity to it, right? It's like you're pinned down. And with my conversations with the women, we would, I mean, I know Marathi, so I could speak to them in Marathi. And I learned that there's this this client sex worker relationship. There's a little bit, like the client always wants to dominate in some form. There's a lot of violence involved in it. And the man is always in, on top or in the missionary position, so to say. So i I thought, why not come at this story from that perspective? Why not look at it from, uh, what is it that these women see on an everyday basis? Because then all the cliched visual indicators of a sex worker, of a brothel, are erased, and you as a viewer have to come in directly and start interpreting for yourself as to why are you looking at this photograph, what is happening here. And when you're presented with 10 of these, then you start thinking as to why am I looking at 10 of these? Is this part of a slum? Is this part of a heart? Is this part of a chawl? Is it, who are these people? What is happening? And when you start asking yourself these questions, and then you're presented with the supporting text, then a lot of people say you need to be empathetic, you need to be this, you need to be that. But if you're going to be providing uh, very direct imagery, I don't know whether it's going, I mean, this is just another attempt at uh, trying to provide an alternative view. So,
isn't this what is showed at the Delhi Photo Festival?
no, I have never shown anything at the Delhi Photo Festival.
Where have I seen this work before?
What oddly, this work was never seen at the Delhi at any Indian photo festival yet.
No.
No.
This is a very interesting take. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it was shown at a festival in Amsterdam, but I couldn't. I couldn't go for it. And my whole plan for the show was that a person has to lie down and see these images. So there were these giant 1 meter wide images which were installed on a roof, and they couldn't arrange for metal beds in that time. So they managed yoga mats. So all the viewers had to come in, lie down, and see it and go. It's not a gimmick, so to say, but it's just that it's trying to help you read the image. If you see it on a wall, you probably do not get that depth perception. You probably do not get that kind of sense of confinement that comes with it. And like I would also lie down on some of those beds, or if the space was too small, or if the woman was not comfortable, then I would just keep the camera on self timer and leave it there. So yeah, you start seeing like a father's ashes, and how the fan is held together with chindi, as you call it, kapde ka pieces.
Doesn't it in a way depict the way their lives are, very loosely
Held together.
with and very fragile, very rustic, very haphazard as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we've seen all these images of Falkland Road, and I don't know what's the place in Delhi. I think it's GB Road or whatever, and they're all like this, these jarring colors and these like. So I thought they're not really taking you deep inside there. Uh, it's not to say that those are bad or those are wrong or something. There are various angles to every story, and just this one kind of uh, I'm just bringing in my own brick to the construction. That's it.
Yeah. Interesting take, because this kind of thought. I mean, I have never seen these kinds of the way you thought about it, and probably wanted to show what they would be daily looking at
Hmm.
the moment they lie down, and I think that's very, again, yeah.
Yeah, it's born out of personal experience, like that photograph of the mother and daughter. It's largely born out of personal experience. And some of the rooms are shared between 2 or 3 people, so they build like these compartments with cloth. Yeah. So now I had like somewhat arrived at like what like a photo series kind of looks like, or how the next step was um, um, the next step was stumbling on this photograph. Sorry.
Can I ask a question before you go on to your book?
G.
When you cover all these very strong stories with very strong imageries, how do you deal with your emotions? Do you, for example, the 2611, you must have gone through various kinds of emotions while you were on the road with people getting shot. And again, in the brothel, you had different kinds of emotions, I'm sure. So how do you deal with that?
So I'll be very honest that I didn't deal with any of these things before 2015 ever, because you are kind of told that you have to be this macho person, who thinks of like one of my first assignments with the Indian Express was I had to photograph Bombay has these leopard attacks that happen
Mm.
almost every summer because the animals are thirsty and they come out to human settlements looking for food and water. So somebody, a man got drunk and fell asleep by a lake, and in the morning he was mauled by the leopard and he didn't survive. And his funeral was about to happen, and I was there. And 6 months ago, I had lost my mom, so I was in myself in a very fragile state, and I couldn't take too many photographs. I took about one or two photographs and I left. And when I went to the office, my boss was like, "Man, I have like this 3-column hole on the front page. What am I going to do with it? You've come back with such bad images." So that's the time I learned that you have to kind of suppress your emotions and work and this and that. And I did that till 2015, till I went to cover the Nepal earthquake, which was a breaking point for me. And I came back completely unsettled from there, and I was like, this is not healthy. Maybe James Nakwe can do it, maybe some other conflict photographer can do it, but not everyone is built the same. And I think I did the best thing. I went into counseling. I had about 10-15 sessions and I spoke very openly, and the counselor also spoke very openly. It's something I tell a lot of my friends, that don't keep it for the rest of your, don't keep it till the end of your life. Do it right away, so that not only will you deal with it, not only will you have an outlet, it has the potential to improve your perspective. It has the potential to improve your imagery. It has the potential to, I don't know, take the bitterness out of you, because if you keep carrying it, it gets, you keep suppressing.
Transposed into your imageries, maybe.
Yeah, and you start becoming that kind of person.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I understand.
so yeah, I mean, um, if that answers you, yes, I didn't deal with it for a long time, but when I dealt with it, I'm glad I dealt with it at the right time.
Thank you.
There is one more thing that I just came to my mind, and probably again linked to 2611, because they are images had to be powerful because the situation also demanded that, probably. But just another thought: you were there. There were bullets getting fired all across, and you saw. You even clicked an image of an individual who could not survive the bullet wound. And so every profession has people who are loyal to the profession and who are not loyal to the profession. Do you also have in this photojournalism that there could be some people who knew that this is happening and they still shied away from it, that they might get killed, or they just didn't want to be a part of that?
There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, initially when I was like 3-4 years into the profession, I used to feel that way. As I said, I used to feel that this whole macho thing, that agar ho raha hai to jana chahiye, agar ho. I was there for that very reason. I mean, the magazine that I used to work for at that point in time, Open, didn't it launched in April 2019. We didn't even have an issue. I don't know what I was doing there. My family was confused. They're like, "Why are you there? Your publication is not even out. तुमको वहां पे मरने की क्या जरूरत?" But I was like, no, I'm a historian. I have to be there. I have to see it and things like that. Uh, as the most recent example, this entire coronavirus lockdown that is happening, I must have gone out, I think, about 3 or 4 days just to photograph like just a couple of things, like a couple of landmarks or something like that. I've not gone into crowded places. I've not gone because I have people at home. I'm a freelancer. I don't have any publication backing me. Instead, I chose to volunteer, which is I felt that it's not necessary that you have to be a historian all the time. You can be human, and if you want to sit something out, if you don't want to risk yourself, it's completely fine. It's self-preservation at best, right? There's nothing wrong in it. If your employer does not understand that, then that's something you need to tackle. And yeah, there's nothing wrong in it.
All right. And coming to this latest series that you showed about the sex workers and all. Now, you say that the story was published, right?
The story of the images that I showed you in the beginning, where you see the brothel in its mundaneness, those were published in 2011. But these, the ceilings one took me a long time to convince. They were published in 2014 as a personal essay.
Okay. But did this kind of story create some kind of an impact on the lives of these women there, or no? It was.
See, that is, you know, the correlation of a photograph creating impact is again some sort of a fallacy, right? A photograph creates an impact when people see it and people move in some way. Now, what is the kind of impact that this photograph of this ceiling will create? It will make you, maximum, it will make you understand, it will bring you closer to how they live. It will make you empathize that, hey, listen, they're also humans. They're not like, you know, they're not supposed, I mean, they deserve it. Again, it's the thing, like, agar koi kuch karna cha raha hai, if you cannot stop them, the least you can do is make it better for them. The least you can do it, make them understand, okay, chalo theek hai, you don't want to study, why don't I make your child study? Because that is the kind of instinct they have, you know. Most of the women think that we are in it, but we don't want our kids to be in it. So if we can make things better for their kids, if we can make things better for, in terms of sanitation, in terms of food, in terms of education, that is the kind of move that is expected out of people in general. Uh, if 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 we keep publishing photographs that other them as like these exotic, colorful, color blue wall, yellow wall soaked items, then I don't know if we are going to be empathetic to do these kind of things.
All right, understand. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So again, this is this photograph was in 2014. I was standing by the beach. This was a place that me and my dad and my family, basically, we used to frequent it a lot. And this was a time when my dad was unwell. He recovered, he came back, but I felt that this photograph was like the start of something new in my head. You know, I'd started exploring the iPhone and its square format, and I just thought to myself at this point that, you know, if like I've been taking pictures for the last 12 years, I need to do something else with it. I can't be like sitting, you know, chasing assignments or like doing profiles all my life, right? You can't be like doing that. You need to put out your own perspective as well. That's if you've cultivated it. So, oh, sorry. So I mean, you like, for me, I could see a lot of changes here. Like this old man sitting under the umbrella, he's always been there. He used to sell different things. Now he sells bird, like, you know, seeds for pigeons. And yeah, there used to be Sea Rock Hotel, which is no longer in existence. There's Taj Lands End, and there's a bridge connecting Worli and Bandra. And you know, it's just that I saw a lot of changes, and of course, the crow is an indicator of many things, especially in our Hindu mythology. The crow is an ode to our ancestors, an ode to death, an ode to a lot of things. And yeah, and I just thought that maybe I should do a book on the city. I should talk about how I see it, how I perceive it, and it began. You can see the next frame. I started, you know, doing it old school. I made like a small little story structure, which you can. I still have it. My handwriting is horrible, so I mean, and
Are you sequencing topics, or are you sequencing the actual photographs here?
I was bunching them. So the book has like a 24-hour timeline. So I was creating quarters, 8 quarters. And of course, there is a stretch in it for seasons. If you notice that, you know, in Bombay, a lot of people say that सुबह को निकले शाम को आ गए ऐसा लगता है साल निकल गया. So it plays on that. And also in the fable, there is a fable at the end of the book where the man is looking for shelter only for 24 hours, but he ends up spending a year there, which could be that it has, you know, with fables, you never know whether, you know, time can be anything. And I also used to do silly things, like I would collect paper samples. I don't know if you can see here. Like I would go to like printers and be like, I need a paper sample. I want to see which paper works for these photos. So,
And by now you've quit your photojournalism job.
No, I've gone
happening?
freelance. I do photojournalism if I'm needed. So far, I've I've stayed out this Corona thing, but I've been very active, and you end up doing a lot of NGO work and other things.
No, sorry. I meant that when you started working on a book, were you still?
No, I was still doing it. I was still doing it. This book took me 4 years, so I began in 2014 and I finished in 2018. And the book took me that long also because I threw myself in the deep end. I had a publisher. I told him to sit us, I was like, "Meko nahi karne ka tumhare sath," because you're gonna fleece me at the end of it anyways. And I didn't go for institutional funding because I was like, how do I explain some of the things? And I'm not very good at, writing these long presentations.
Did you decide right at the beginning that I'm going to shoot only with my mobile phone?
Yes.
And was it because of a certain kind of photograph you expected to shoot with phones, or what was the?
No, I was just very comfortable. I was just very comfortable with it, and I felt that, if I'm chronicling today, then I might as well do it with the camera of today. Like, this is the most commonly used camera, right? And it also kind of takes me back to those instant hot shots that I showed you all. It's like you just take it instinctively, you allow instinct to have a upper hand on things. Whereas with the camera, while you're adjusting your aperture or something of that sort, you have that little leeway to have a second thought or change something.
You started this in 2014, and the idea for book started in the early stage itself, or?
That photograph was the idea for the book.
Okay, so you must have taken many pictures during this time.
Yeah, lots of them.
So do you print in between and to see how the sequence, or how was the process done?
So there were stages, there was printing in between, there were lots and lots of PDFs. And then again, I would be like, okay, let me print some and see, and then lay it out with my hands. And I'll show you, I also made like some very cheap dummies on Xerox paper, like this one. This is half the size of the current size of the book. It has a very terrible font, and that's, they're loosely bound, just Xerox sheets, black and white. And here is also when I tried the caption, and Sriran has the book. You can see, the caption fold out that is there. The gatefold, the cover gatefold.
Mm-hmm.
This, I took like some sellotape and tried it out. Like the captions are not at the end of the book. They're in the cover itself. So that, like I felt that when I used to look at photo books with my family, and they'd be like, oh, page 25, what does this photo stand for? And we'd have to go all the way back to the index and see it and then come back. And I was like, I don't want this kind of jarring experience. It has to be seamless. So when you open the book, when you open the cover, there's a gatefold in it, which has all the captions. So if you're the kind who wants to decipher the images yourself, cool, keep the gatefold closed. If you're the kind who wants to try and figure out, do a match the columns exercise, you open the gatefold and you keep flipping. The gatefold stays there with all the information, and you can just match page number with it and read the caption.
And did you decide that you're going to self-publish right at the beginning, or did you get disappointed by responses and say, okay, I'm going to still publish it?
No, I had I approached only 2, 3 publishers, but I also approached like these mass publishers, right? HarperCollins, Penguin, etc. So I got that kind of response from them, and some 1 or 2 of these guys were actually interested, but they had this like very bizarre, very wordy contract, which I was not very interested in getting into. And also one conversation happened with somebody, and they were like, boss, if you're doing your first book, just self-publish, just do it yourself, do a small print run, and if it flies, it flies. If it doesn't fly, you can still use it as a portfolio or something of that sort.
That's a good advice for any beginners.
I mean, also, we, you know,
What about crowdfunding?
um, I can tell you all of this in the next photograph. Like
Okay, okay.
it's made to tell you all that. So then, like after that photograph, I started actively looking for things, and there's this like one scene. This is the entrance to a place called the Cuckoo Club, where I used to go to listen to my friends play. They have a lot of jazz performances, and I don't understand anything about jazz, but my friends play it, so I have to be there. And I mean, it's nice music to listen to, but when they start doing all sorts of things and I don't understand what's going on, I just feel like, oh, it's great, that's it. But so there they have these like very, ancient manhole covers which have like this very interesting font. They have Bombay written on it, and they keep putting concrete over it on the sides. The road keeps getting relayed, and I've seen this scene since I don't know how many 6 7 years. It keeps happening. You have leaves that accumulate in this corner. um, they can't obviously put too much concrete around the manhole because it has to be opened at some point. And then this one particular morning, I was taking a walk with my friends. We saw this like uh, one cat and two of her kittens sitting out here, and it reminded me of my mother's fable, which becomes the title of the book, The Red Cat and Other Stories. It's a very simple fable. It's basically, I mean, it's very simple, but it talks about a lot of things like climate change, man-animal love, relations, interpersonal relationships, etc. And so it's set in Sindh. It's a very small family, mother, father, and son, and they're hit by a drought. Their crops have failed, so the son decides that he's going to go to a different town to look for work. And so he begins his journey, and on the way he gets lost. And while he's lost in the jungle, he sees this very bizarre flickering light happening in the distance, and he follows it. He reaches there. It turns out to be a mansion of sorts, and in the mansion are 7 different rooms of 7 different colors, with the last one occupied by a cat, which is red in color. And thus begins their friendship, etc. And so I thought this is a very fitting metaphor. This is a very fitting story for um, a city that originally began as 7 islands. And in fact, it's ironic that in the time of the lockdown right now, Bombay has been reconstituted as 7 zones. So yeah, I just took that story as a pivot point, and I restructured my narrative again. It also gave me a chance to bring to words, um, give physical form to a fable that is existing only in oral form. Like this red cat story is just passed on from one family member to another. That's it. There's no written form to it. Can go to the next images. And then I took help from friends. That's my friend Harsha Vadlamani. Uh, I harassed him to no end. I would throw like my PDFs, my edits, etc. to him. He's a reasonably shy person, so I've taken that kind of a photograph of him where he's sitting on the side. And next, I also met at a crucial stage of the book. I met this German photographer, Peter Bialobrzeski, and Peter does these very dystopian images of urban spaces. You can check it out. And I showed him my book. I showed him one of my PDFs, and he was working on a book on Bombay at that time. So we both did this very interesting exercise that he also looked at my edit, I looked at his edit, and we both gave inputs to each other. Although he's very, very senior to me, he's about 2 World Press wins and all of that. So that was an interesting experience. We used to edit on Skype, and he taught me the phrase "kill your darlings," which was very essential. Um, I was madly in love with a lot of my images because they were so good looking or they were so finely constructed. I ended up throwing them out purely because they didn't fit into the story. I wouldn't have had that confidence or that you know um, mercilessness, if I may call it, had it not been for his inputs. Yeah, some of the stories in the book. There are also like individual profiles of people, and this is oh, I can show you. Okay, Sriranj has the book, but not many people do. So I mean, I can't show it to you. Okay, so this is Somnath Jadhav. He's one of those.
What do you want, Ritesh? I can help.
No, no, it's okay. I mean, I have the dummy with me, so it's okay.
This one?
Yeah, yeah. I have it. I have it in my hand.
Okay.
So Somnath is one of those characters that I gravitated to in the book. He sells donkey milk. You know, it's very unusual. Um, Donkey milk is believed to be medicinal for senior citizens. It improves immunity, etc. There's also a belief that it's fed to infants because apparently people think it makes infants smarter. I don't know anything about that, but I just found him to be an interesting piece in the puzzle. And I spent many days, many mornings walking with him. He also has a very interesting part of religion and such, practices, that there's a lot of theater involved in it. So he picks up the child, he puts like 1 spoon full of donkey milk, and um, uh, you know um, he then takes the child by his feet, by his or her feet, and does like this parikrama around the donkey and flips it in the air and whatnot. I mean, I don't have a video of it here, but it's a very strange thing to see. But then Somnath also had very honest insights about what it is like to be from the class that he comes in and how people perceive him. And if you're lost in a new city, if you're a new entrant to any city, whether it's Bombay, Delhi, New York, whatever, you will come across these kind of characters. We can go to the next one. I promise I'll finish very fast right now.
So this is
Yeah, this is sorry.
looks interesting. What's happening here?
That's a fashion blogger being photographed by a woman who's wearing very conservative bohri rida. It's their version of the burqa. It was happening in my garden, in my society garden, so I didn't have to travel too far for it. That's again another chance encounter I had with um, Akash, and I've never seen somebody with like a tattooed face, and I'm very curious as to why somebody would do that to themselves. And Akash told me his entire story, which is not the most pleasant ones, but i- in in the duration of our many conversations, I realized that he's also a very happy person. And conventional journalism, if you come across a sob story, you'll take a very sob, sad, partly lit portrait, and it could be like very dramatic. But I realized that he has a certain kind of dark side to him, which an indicator of that happens in the background, like this man in the dark. But otherwise, he's a jovial guy who's trying to deal with his problems just like any of us. Yeah, and then I would throw my problems online because I didn't have a publisher, I didn't have, so you can read some of them. If there are any questions, you all can fire away.
Panelists, any questions?
Yeah, so Ritesh, Suresh here.
Hi, Suresh.
I finally we meet.
Yeah.
So during this time, you mentioned you were still freelancing, right?
Yes.
So these were shots that you would take like during your daily walks, or I mean, chance encounters. I mean, how
All
do
of
you
it.
separate like your daily work? I mean, your paid work with this. How did you manage to do that?
I mean, there's no one fixed solution to it. I managed it somehow. Uh, the thing is that I also told my family what I was doing. So, you know, when you involve people close to you, there is a reasonable amount of support that comes in terms of like, acha, if you're going early in the morning to shoot, why don't you like take something to eat with you and all of that. Second thing was, yeah, I mean, there's a very strange old dictum of sorts that if you're going for an assignment, go 1 hour early and leave 1 hour late. Because there is a chance, you know, that also gives you room to wander a bit, explore a bit, see some things. So I would stick to that. Plus, yeah, man, as in like since I had that thing कि मुझे किताब बनाना है, तो मैनेज हो जाता था कैसे भी करके, you know, if you want to do it, it just happens. And a lot of it is planned. A lot of it is like, okay, I went to meet the donkey man once. I'm not very happy with the photo, or I'm not very happy with the text, because the text has to not just correspond, it has to elevate the entire spread. It's not just, you know, the photograph and the text supports it, or the text and the photograph supports it. Both of them have to have their own level. So a number of times I would end up going just to interview people that have been photographed. And over the time, over the duration of interviews, you realize that, oh, the photograph you took in the first meeting is no longer valid. Let's look for something else now. So you end up reworking the image.
So did you go back to these guys after you published the book? Did you? I mean,
Yeah, all of them have a copy. I mean, the donkey man does not. Somnath is nowhere to be found, but almost everyone has a copy of the book.
What is the thought process in some of the sections you have these narratives, the story behind each photos. In some sections you don't have. It's purely like visual.
Because that's the kind of experience I have of a place. Like, you know, if I leave from my house for an assignment and I take public transport, I'll run, you know, I'll sit in the train, etc. And I'm lost in my own thoughts. I'm admiring the sights. I'm, you know, or like I'm crushed between people or whatever, and somebody will come and disturb this equilibrium or whatever, or this situation, and start talking to you. Like in taxis, you know, you're rushing somewhere and suddenly the taxi guy will start giving you some gyan, you know, Hindu Muslim aisa, this thing, that thing, you know, pradhan mantri aise, hamare zamane mein waisa, and everything. That flow of your day is completely broken in a good way by different kinds of people. So that's the kind of experience I wanted people to have. Okay, you begin, you're in your own pace, and then suddenly somebody says, "Hey, listen to my story," and then you go forward.
Very interesting.
Very interesting, actually.
Hi Ritesh, Indrajit here.
Hello, कसा है?
Hello, मस्त एकदम. दो मराठी वाले बोलने लगे अभी. So as you know, I am a great fan of your book, The Cat and Other Story, Red Cat and Other Story. But when we think about Bombay, or when we see most of the previous work done on Bombay, there is many cliched kind of images comes into mind. So how you kept yourself away from that cliche, and what was your what was your thought process behind whole idea of Bombay?
आइडिया मतलब ये
So,
हाँ मैं समझा.
I mean mostly Bombay means local train, but in your picture the one guy with sweating back, that's the only picture of railway comes into the book. Yeah,
the two pictures.
And that's and that's a very effective picture.
There are two pictures of local trains. The one of
second
the woman sleeping in the end.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, so बेसिकली मैंने ये सोचा कि जो मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है वो, अगर छोड़ो मेरा एक्सपीरियंस, अगर आप बम्बई में नए भी आते हो, इफ यू आर न्यू टू द सिटी, देन for the first 2-3 weeks you will do this gateway Kolaba Chowpatty business. You know, you will see all this colonial architecture. If you're living in Malad and if you're working in Chembur, there is no way you're going to be seeing this, you know, every 2 days. Okay, you're going to be going through the suburbs, you're going to live through a certain kind of drudgery, a certain kind of day, and that is true of, I think, all the cities, right? So plus, yeah, if you want to see images of landmarks, then there are other photographers for that, or there's Google for that. So you don't need me for that, honestly. And so I made a list कि भैया cliches हैं वो पहले ही नहीं चाहिए मेरे को. I began with what I didn't want also, apart from what I wanted. And I felt that because I'm using a very common man camera, having a very commoner approach, the images and the way the color correction or the absence of it is also very integral, because if I were to have like very high contrast clouds and things like that, वो भी थोड़ा थोड़ा वो jarring हो जाता था to the kind of experience I wanted to portray. Because बम्बई को भी बहुत ज़्यादा ग्लैमराइज किया जाता है, बहुत ज़्यादा, when you look at books on Bombay, it's largely location or personality driven. Okay, you'll see Sachin Tendulkar, you see that, you see that. In my book, there is no, I don't think there's an image of cricket in it. There's cricket happening in the background somewhere in one of the photographs, and that's about it.
Yeah.
We can go to the next slide.
Can we go?
So this is basically just the experience of putting together your book. I would go to these local printers and be like, chalo, we'll make a sleeve, we'll make this, we'll make that, we'll do this kind of binding. I used to think, you begin with this thing कि पता नहीं बंदा नाराज ना हो जाए, उसको ऐसी ऐसी चीजें बोलेंगे तो. But I met a lot of very cool people who were like, chalo, we'll try. What's the worst that could happen?
So if you make another book on Bombay, what will be difference from previous book? What do you think that should be added?
I don't know. I have no idea, man. As in, like, I can't answer what
Because
will happen.
I saw a few new pictures in the exhibition which happened near Max Muller Bhavan last time.
Those were different. So I can't stop shooting, right? But
yeah.
like,
that was Afterlife. No?
Afterlife was at the Indian Photo Festival. That was different. There was one show at Max Muller which was different, which had 40% of the book, 40% of the rejects of the book, and 20% new material. I don't know. I'll probably do. I don't know, man. Maybe I can show that I'm a competent SLR photographer also. Maybe I can do that.
Good.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide also. So again, with the font, the font of the book, we kept thinking, acha, font kya lena. And then I was just like, font ki itni magazmari kyun karni hai? I interact with this artist called Sabina Karnik. You should follow her on Instagram. She does some very interesting work. So she got hold of my, I gave her the handwriting samples of my sisters, and she merged it into the title. And also, if you see this top layer of text on the book, top layer of text, like this graph kind of thing, this if you put all the text of the book in one place, if you look at it just in the text format, I was thinking कि अगर कभी पता नहीं 2-3 साल बाद कभी भी life में exhibition करना होगा तो the text can be the decider of the layout. Like, the text looks like a skyline, so I can start, this gives me like, at least my one wall will be sorted if I do an exhibition. Plus it gave me a very nice experiment to do. I first justified my text blocks, and then I sat and manually pulled, like with help of designers, not just me, 2 of my designer friends, we spread apart the text. So it looks like as if हमने justify किया ही नहीं है उसको.
Okay, so may I?
Yes, sir.
So the first point about this book is that you decided that this could be an un-Bombay book.
Yeah.
The second was that you would validate it yourself and you would self-publish it. And the third, which is equally important, or I find it extremely fascinating, is the fact that you decided that you're going to not just distribute it yourself, but you'll distribute it in a way which no one else has ever done before.
Again, purely by accident.
So what was the motivation? What made you think of doing that?
But if we go to the next slide, could Please do that. So this is okay. Before I answer you, this is just the setup of Pragati where I printed, and they were the most coolest people to print with. I'm sure there are lots of other cool printers also, but I had a great time with them, and they used to take care of my food also every day. So I would get like the best of the food while I was in the press from like 9 in the morning till 11 in the night, and yeah, I mean, every photographer should go through this experience of producing their own book, even if it's a 20-page zine. If we go to the next slide, then I can answer Dineshji. So the books came to my house, 15 giant cartons. I was supposed to print 500 copies. When I went to Hyderabad, they said, you know, 500 to 750 is just this much of a difference. So I said, okay, I'll, cancel an FD and I'll print 750. But 2 days before printing, I was like, why am I doing just 750? Why can't I have 1,000? What's the hurry? I don't want to be one of those photographers who create this fear of missing out by, my book is sold out, my book is sold out. If I had money, I'd bloody publish 1 lakh copies. Yeah. So I did 1,000 and I had 15 boxes sitting at home. And the day the books came, somebody called me saying, hey, I'm passing by Bombay. I'm here for 6 hours. If you haven't couriered my copy, we can meet for a cup of coffee and I can take it from you or whatever. And I went. And the experience of looking at this person, looking at my book in front of me was so fascinating that I was like, why should I waste money on a book launch? As many deliveries as possible, I will do it myself. I will go to people's houses. I will pick a Sunday or a Saturday and I'll just land up. And I started doing that with other cities also. If I had an assignment in Goa, I would carry 11, 12 books with me and take an extra day and just do it that way. And it really, there are lots of
Why you didn't come to Kerala, man?
didn't get a chance, yeah.
And you never came to my house. आपकी गुड़गांव visit अभी बाकी.
आ जाएंगे अगली किताब के साथ आएंगे. So yeah, that was it. I mean, and it still goes on. Like in the lockdown, I've received about 6 orders or so. So I'll go and fulfill those once things are over.
You still deliver yourself.
I mean, if I can, and after the lockdown, it's going to be a beautiful experience, right? People meeting. I may have to go with a mask. I may have to like give it like, fling it at them or something of that sort. So it's going to be strange. Plus, it became a chance to talk. Yeah, like at a book launch, only my friends are going to come. They're going to have my, हमने जो मंगाया दारू खाना वो हम कभी भी कर सकते हैं. So this was better. I got to taste a lot of different kinds of food, have different kinds of alcohol with different people and conversations. It was priceless. It's more, it's just more than the book, it's not just lots of very interesting connections.
Can you please tell about the bind as well?
The bind is basically the day the dummy came.
Actually, I want to narrate that story. I got the book. I messaged Ritesh. Ritesh, the book is damaged. Something's wrong with the bind.
Oh, a lot of people did that. It's okay.
Okay, should I move ahead?
Yeah, we can move ahead. This is the end of it. This is a small video of all those people who got their books.
Oh my God. Hi. That's the whole idea, no? Hello. I had no idea you were coming. Lots of people don't have an idea I'm coming. This is so cool. Hey. Hello.
This is so good, Ritesh.
Okay. So I think this is the end of it.
You were right that book launch would not get this experience.
Mm.
The
No,
joy
there's
on people's
nothing
face.
enough. I would like to do a book just so I can go and look at people's faces and reactions. Yeah. Really.
Nitish, are you working on another book?
No, I tried working last year for about 3-4 months. I hammered over it, but बैठ नहीं रहा था, तो छोड़ दिया.
It'll come when it comes.
That's I think I also learned in the process of this किताब की जब जो जैसे आज का जो भी हुआ ना लोचा जब जो होना होता है तभी होता है उसका हमारे कंट्रोल के बाहर.
Don't let that phase you. Yeah.
वो कंट्रोल नहीं है तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते. क्या
नहीं कंट्रोल नहीं है बट ये होता है कि if you just step back from it then there is either a better alternative that comes in as in like you can see for something else or whatever. Otherwise वो बंद जाते हैं उसी से.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent, Ritesh.
Thanks, yeah.
Even the time which we lost.
Sorry about that.
All these, after listening to all these, we forgot that there was a glitch.
Oh, I'm glad.
It was really an experience going through your journey. Seriously.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. As in, and
pleasure.
If there is anyone doing any books or anything, and if I can be of any help, because I made like these very elaborate Excel sheets and all of that, and with numbers and all of that. So if you all need any logistical help, because I also tied up with a lot of courier companies and things. It's actually a shitload of work, which we don't realize when we're just getting into it. So yeah, I'm happy to help in any way with whatever information I have.
Definitely pick your brain.
A few of us will be in touch with you and bug you since you already made this public.
I still had a question about the book. So you took around 4 years to, from the first picture until the moment you completed the book. How did you know that this was the time to end? Because I mean, you don't really have a deadline, right? You're self-publishing it. You're doing the whole exercise yourself. So there's no real limit until which you can go, right? So when did you know, and how did you know that it was done? The book was done.
I had a deadline of 2016, which didn't happen. Then 2017, which didn't happen. 2018 was, I think, I was reasonably confident, and I was like, okay, let's go for it. I just felt that these images fit, and I think there was this very interesting feedback I got from a classical musician who was the first one to catch the 24-hour with the seasonal leaves, and I was like, if somebody can catch it, then I think we're done.
Did anybody help you with the editing, the sequencing editing?
Everybody, lots of people helped me. Srini helped me, Harsha helped me, Peter helped me. It's just that they were given the framework and they said, okay, this probably doesn't fit and this probably doesn't sit here. And I forgot to mention that 2-3 of my former colleagues from the papers also helped me with the text. It's not just me. They mentioned in the book a lot of text, the text also went through a lot of rounds to keep it as conversational, as honest, and as factually correct as possible.
Okay. Any more questions, panelists, or shall we wrap it up?
I think no. So, Dinesh sir, anybody?
Dinesh sir?
No, I've got reasonable. What are you working on now? I mean, what do you do? What are you? I know. Besides the corona, it's not a hiccup; it's an earthquake. But up to then, and what do you plan? What have you been doing?
I've been doing really nothing. We're just going out and helping some of the people in the in the way we in any way we can, especially with rations and all. But I don't know. We've I've I think that we'll have to rethink our approach considerably, and I'm taking this as a downtime to rethink, to be quiet and see where and how we come out of this, as what kind of people, as what kind of photographers. Do we even come out of it as photographers is what also is on my mind. I'm just taking it as a welcome time to introspect. And a lot of my friends are also doctors who are handling these facilities, who are handling hospitals. We get to know real time as to what is happening there. And so yeah, I mean, I'm just getting in as much information as I can. I'm doing whatever I can possibly do as a human being, not as a photographer, to see where we end up, to see what happens, to see what other kind of decisions I take later.
And just coming back to the book for a moment, since you've already done one print run, I would imagine you sold a lot of it. Would you consider an ebook version of the same book, or considering a lot of people are, screen friendly, live on screens? I mean, that's a dilemma or reality, really. I keep wondering about now.
So
This
that's,
entire thing of photography being a paper medium, I think that died. No one even noticed that.
I think both can coexist. The photography.
No, I know. So that you have a book, you've done a book, it is there,
Yeah.
and it's a marvelous book in print.
Mm.
But since there is an entire audience which is also very screen friendly, to the point, and I've heard this from a couple of other photographers who said, "Oh, we've done books, and people who were so excited about my doing a book but never even bought or even asked for a copy."
Yeah, it happens.
And it's there's a block with the book in a lot of minds. So I'm just wondering if what you think of that in relation to your book and generally.
There are 2-3 factors that go against the book. One is the affordability factor, the production factor, the shipping. If my book was beyond 350 grams, my shipping would go double. So you have to take those factors also in consideration when you're producing it. I don't know, I've forgotten the name. So I've gotten reasonably bad with names over the last year. There's the founder of Mac Books. They're a photo book publisher from London, I think. He has a very interesting talk in which he spoke about this one photographer whose book was made, and then they tied up with a designer, and they had to do an ebook version of it. But instead, it's not just a flipping, flip over type ebook. It's an actual website with an entire user interface. So I think an ebook being a digital replica of a conventional book has also we have to kind of rethink that also. Yeah, because if you're giving somebody a digital experience, then it should be something beyond the scroll, also something that is kind of true to the narrative, story, concept, whatever the right word is. So if I have to do an ebook of this, firstly, it will be remarkably different. It could probably not be the same title also. It can't have the same person. I mean, it's literally impossible to create this kind of a personality onto a screen. So maybe some other book could be an ebook, purely an ebook. But then how will you make money off it? How will you even recover your costs? Because the PDF.
So having gone through this experience, you would do another book like this? I don't mean the content, with the entire paraphernalia and the models and the.
I mean, ideally, it would be nice to do another book at some point, but I would take all the learning from this one and try to work out a cost which helps me expand my market even more. Because right now what we are seeing is books which are priced at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, etc. You're only reaching a kind of audience. And I've had like people buy this book for their son-in-laws and father-in-laws and this one and that one, who have nothing to do with photography. They were simply moved by seeing it somewhere, or simply moved by the fact that, oh, the author came to my house to deliver it, or something, or anything. There are connections that have happened, and the moment they read the price, they're like, oh, I can take this. I can take this. Oh, it's a small book. I can keep this anywhere and things. So I'll take these considerations moving forward, and I feel I will keep deploying them till the time I don't feel the absolute need to do like a book which is bigger than my head. And metaphorically.
Our egos, you know.
Yeah, I meant that.
I didn't mean that.
Okay.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I said, I think it's marvelous. It's
No,
a
I mean,
lot of-
yeah,
it's a lot of
like in
oneself
your,
that goes into a book, you know. So
yeah,
it's me.
yeah.
It's us.
Like in your book that you have, that's the format that fits it best, you know, and some other people. So wherever it is not possible to cut a corner on the format or on anything, you don't. But then maybe you find an alternative, like you find like an, I don't know. When I get to it, I'll find a solution for that as well.
I hope you're going to get to it.
Yeah,
You get to Gurgaon with your second book.
Yes, I will. Thank
And
you
I
for
hope
being
it's
very,
gonna
very
be-
patient.
And it doesn't come through V-transfer slowly.
No, sorry. Sorry for the glitch today.
No, I wasn't referring to the glitch.
Indrajit is not impressed by any of this. He's still figuring out. वो अभी तक सोच रहा है कि इसने आपूस का पेटी मांगा है, इसको कैसे भेजूं और कितना रेट लगाऊं कुरियर का.
नहीं, वो सोच रहा
खुद डिलीवर करने आ जा.
नहीं, खुद था, वही सोच रहा कि खुद जाऊं कि मैं कुरियर से भेजूं. कि रितेश तो बुरा मान जाएगा, किताब देने तो खुद आता है और वो
मैं पहली बार आज आपूस लाया करते.
अरे
इस साल बहुत कम है आपूस.
वो सब मद्रास का आ रहा है ना सब.
ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का ही प्रॉब्लम है ना थोड़ा, और लेबर नहीं है.
Thank you for having me, yaar. Thank you.
Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
I think.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the talk. Thank you.
Jassi, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh.
Bye.
It was wonderful.
It was really wonderful. It was quite enlightening for people like
It
us.
was wonderful to hear you talk.
Yeah.
Really.
It was really very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sriranj, for moderating it. I know that you are running short of time now, and so thank you, Dinesh sir. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Indrajit. Thank you, Jayati. And it was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Bye.